The Regency country house has often been remembered as a fantasy of candlelight, music, romance, and aristocratic elegance. But behind the silk gowns and polished silver existed another reality entirely. These estates were filled with cold corridors, exhausted servants, strategic marriages, hidden debts, social anxiety, and rituals so demanding that entire families sometimes strained their fortunes simply trying to appear secure. For Britain's aristocracy, the country house became more than a home. It was a performance of stability, inheritance, taste, wealth, and social position. During the Regency period, from 1811 to 1820, Britain remained shaped by land ownership, servants, tenant farming, inheritance law, etiquette, and the pressure of maintaining appearances. London offered Parliament, court life, Almack's assemblies, and the social season. But the country estate represented permanence. It was where heirs were raised, marriages encouraged, fortunes displayed, and family identity preserved through land, architecture, and social connection. Many wealthy families divided the year between London and the country. The season drew them into town for balls, assemblies, court presentations, political gatherings, and endless social maneuvering. But once Parliament recessed or the social calendar quieted, families often returned to their estates for months at a time. Guests arrived for visits lasting days or even weeks. Political alliances formed over dinner tables. Marriages were quietly encouraged during long walks, concerts, card games, and horseback rides. Estate business continued constantly through rents, agriculture, repairs, tenant relations, and household management. Jane Austen understood this world intimately. So did Beau Brummel, Lord Byron, Princess Leven, Lady Jersey, and the Prince Regent, whose tastes in fashion, scandal, luxury, and display shaped Regency society. Brummel became famous for immaculate linen, polished boots, restrained tailoring, and cravats tied with astonishing precision. George IV transformed Carlton House and Brighton Pavilion into extravagant displays of Regency taste, filled with mirrors, silk, lacquer, gilding, and theatrical luxury. Carlton House itself became notorious for astonishing expense, gambling, debt, and royal excess. Architects and designers shaped the visual world surrounding fashionable society. John Nash helped define Regency architecture and royal interiors. Robert Adams' neoclassical rooms continued influencing elite taste long after his death. Humphrey Repton followed Capability Brown in redesigning landscapes that appeared effortless, despite requiring enormous planning and expense. To later generations, this world became romanticized through novels, paintings, costume dramas, and images of elegant women gliding through candlelit ballrooms. But daily life inside these houses was far more complicated than the fantasy suggested. Grand dinners required invisible labor, courtship involved calculation as much as romance. Even the most beautiful estates carried anxieties about inheritance, debt, reputation, and social survival. This was what life was really like at an English country house during the Regency era. Arriving at the estate. Arrival at a great country house could feel theatrical. After hours of exhausting travel over muddy roads scarred by carriage wheels, visitors might finally pass through iron gates onto a long approach drive designed to reveal the estate slowly. The landscape itself formed part of the illusion. By the late 18th and early 19th centuries, wealthy landowners transformed estates into carefully engineered parks. Rolling lawns, artificial lakes, groves of trees, and winding drives created scenery that appeared natural while being meticulously planned. Some estates used ha-has, sunken fences that kept livestock away from formal gardens while preserving uninterrupted views across the countryside. Capability Brown helped define this style in the 18th century, while Humphrey Repton refined it for a new generation of landowners through his illustrated Red Books. At houses like Chatsworth, Woburn Abbey, Kettleston, and Castle Howard, architecture itself became a declaration of dynastic power. The Devonshires at Chatsworth, the Bedfords at Woburn, and families like the Percys and Londonderrys lived in a world where family identity became inseparable from the estate itself. And then, through rain or evening fog, the house finally appeared. Windows glowed across enormous stone facades while footmen hurried down the steps carrying lanterns before the carriage wheels had fully stopped. The smell of wet horses, damp wool, mud, cold air, and wet leather drifted into the entrance hall as servants rushed to unload luggage before dinner. Travel itself could be miserable. Roads remained rough and deeply rutted during bad weather. Carriages overturned with alarming frequency, wheels broke unexpectedly, and long journeys often left travelers bruised, freezing, or violently ill from motion sickness. Even expensive clothing suffered. Hems became soaked with mud, while damp cloaks and riding coats filled entrance halls during heavy rain. Guests emerged stiff from travel after journeys that could consume an entire day depending on weather and road conditions. Behind them came trunks packed with evening clothes, gloves, books, writing desks, riding habits, jewelry cases, calling cards, and carefully folded linen. A young woman entering a great house for the first time might spend the journey worrying about her manners, conversation, appearance, and future prospects, long before she ever stepped inside. House parties required astonishing preparation. A family might spend months at its country estate outside the London season, especially during autumn hunting periods, Christmas gatherings, or extended summer visits. Some stays revolved around estate business. Others centered around political hospitality, matchmaking, concerts, or elaborate entertaining. Once guests arrived, the house almost operated like a private court. Entire wings might be reopened after being closed to reduce heating and staffing costs. Fires relit, beds aired, candles replaced, guest rooms prepared, horses stabled, additional food ordered. Servants moved quickly through corridors carrying linens, coal scuttles, candles, and warming pans, while cooks downstairs prepared dinner before the bell rang. To guests, the house appeared calm, but long before the first carriage arrived, the household was already working to sustain the illusion. Below stairs. By morning, the great house had already been awake for hours. Long before guests appeared downstairs, servants moved through corridors carrying hot water, coal, candles, ash buckets, and fresh linens through the sleeping house. Life upstairs depended entirely upon labor below. In large households, the servant hierarchy was strict. The butler oversaw wine, plate, dining service, and male servants. The housekeeper supervised linen, candles, cleaning, and much of the female staff. Beneath them were footmen, ladies' maids, valets, housemaids, laundry maids, kitchen maids, scullery maids, coachmen, gardeners, nursery staff, dairy workers, and stable servants. Some households employed dozens of servants simply to maintain appearances. Footmen were often selected partly for height and physical appearance, because wealthy families considered them visible symbols of status during formal dinners and arrivals. Before the family appeared downstairs, fireplaces had to be cleaned and relit. ashes removed, water heated and carried upstairs manually, boots polished, breakfast trays assembled. Country houses concealed much of this labor deliberately. Servants used side passages, hidden staircases, attic corridors, and basement routes so the household above could appear graceful and undisturbed. Below stairs, bells rang constantly. To servants, the house meant climbing staircases, endlessly carrying coal and hot water that sometimes cooled before reaching distant bedrooms. Candles required trimming. Fires demanded constant attention. Silver tarnished quickly and required hours of polishing before dinner. Laundry involved staggering labor before modern machines. Kitchens became brutally hot during large gatherings, while upper corridors in winter could remain bitterly cold and damp. Years of coal smoke, ash, dampness, and kitchen heat could permanently damage servants' lungs and skin. Laundry maids working constantly beside lye, steam, and boiling water often developed raw, cracked hands that never fully healed. Some servants slept in freezing attic quarters beside bell corridors, where they could be awakened repeatedly throughout the night. At Kew Palace, the preserved Georgian kitchens still reveal the immense labor required simply to feed large households. Some guests judged a house by the precision of its servants. Others barely noticed them at all. Mourning inside the house. Mourning inside a Regency country house followed ritual. Despite the wealth surrounding them, these houses were often colder, darker, and smokier than modern audiences imagine. Bedrooms could become bitterly cold once fires burned low overnight. The smell of the house differed completely from the modern world. Beeswax, coal smoke, damp wool, starch, perfume, extinguished candle wicks, and burning wood lingering through the corridors. Perfume served a practical purpose as well as a fashionable one. Bathing remained infrequent by modern standards. Heavy clothing trapped odors easily, and crowded gatherings filled rooms with smoke, cosmetics, powder, sweat, wine, and candle wax. Some families quietly closed entire wings during winter because heating every room became financially unrealistic. Most bedrooms still lacked modern bathrooms. Bedchambers usually contained washstands with basins and pitchers, while chamber pots remained hidden discreetly inside furniture and emptied by servants each morning. Beds could be warmed using metal warming pans slipped beneath the sheets before sleep. On especially cold mornings, water pitchers sometimes froze overnight beside the bed. Breakfast was often served in rooms overlooking gardens or parkland. A wealthy table might include tea, coffee, chocolate, bread, toast, butter, preserves, eggs, kidneys, cold meats, fish, pastries, or rolls, while letters from London or neighboring estates were read aloud beside the fire. Tea imported through the East India Company became central to upper-class daily life, while Chinese porcelain and silver tea urns reflected status as much as practicality. A nervous young woman attending a house party might spend breakfast wondering where she would sit at dinner, whether a particular gentleman planned to ride with her that afternoon, or whether attention from the wrong person could quietly damage her reputation. For women, mornings often involved correspondence, sketching, embroidery, reading, music practice, or aspects of household supervision. Appearance itself required considerable labor. Women frequently changed dress multiple times throughout the day, depending on the activity and expectations of the hour. Hair required pomades, perfumes, pins, curling papers, and careful arrangement, while gentlemen devoted remarkable attention to shaving, boots, linen, and cravats. Meanwhile, men of the household often turned toward estate business involving rents, repairs, agriculture, tenant disputes, horses, hunting grounds, and land management across hundreds or thousands of acres. For wealthy landowners, the estate functioned as far more than a beautiful residence. It was also an economic machine. Tenant farms, rents, livestock, gardens, timber, and local influence all required attention. Some houses appeared impossibly grand. The finances supporting them were often far less secure than visitors realized. House parties and social performance. By evening, the rhythm of the house changed again. Candles were lit across drawing rooms and galleries. Servants prepared dinner. Guests disappeared upstairs to dress. Then, the evening truly began. Country house parties could last for days or even weeks because travel remained difficult, and guests often arrived from considerable distances. These gatherings brought together aristocrats, wealthy families, military officers, politicians, eligible daughters, ambitious mothers, artists, writers, and carefully selected guests, whose presence reflected social importance. Nothing about these visits was casual. Seating arrangements carried meaning, invitations strengthened alliances or signaled exclusion. A successful house party displayed hospitality, influence, wealth, political connection, and taste all at once. For unmarried women, the stakes were especially high. A country house gathering might represent one of the few socially acceptable opportunities to spend extended time near eligible men outside formal London society. For many women, the house party functioned as a marriage market disguised as entertainment. Flirtations unfolded during carriage rides, archery parties, horseback rides, card games, dinners, garden walks, concerts, and candlelit conversations after midnight. But these gatherings also carried risk. Too much attention from the wrong man, dancing too frequently with one partner, speaking too openly, or appearing overly eager could quickly become material for gossip, extending far beyond the estate itself. Society noticed everything. London hostesses and social arbiters shaped much of this world from behind the scenes. At Almack's, patronesses such as Lady Jersey and Princess Leven influenced reputations through invitations and exclusions. Lady Caroline Lamb, famous for her scandalous affair with Lord Byron, became one of the great examples of how glamour and scandal could collide. Byron himself, adored and condemned in equal measure, arrived at country houses carrying the dangerous glamour of debt, affairs, celebrity, and rumor. Gambling formed another hidden part of aristocratic life. Card tables sometimes remained active deep into the night, and fortunes could disappear astonishingly quickly through reckless betting. Behind some candlelit dinners sat estates already struggling beneath gambling debts, dowry pressures, and mounting loans. Some families mortgaged land, sold silver, or pursued advantageous marriages in hopes of stabilizing finances while continuing to entertain lavishly. Dueling scandals still hovered at the edges of fashionable society as well. Reputation, insult, and masculine pride could carry dangerous consequences, particularly among military officers and politically connected men. Even candlelight carried danger. Hundreds of candles might burn during a single evening of entertaining, and fires remained a threat inside houses filled with fabric, paper, dried wood, and open flame. Yet these gatherings could also feel genuinely enchanting. On rainy evenings, guests gathered beside enormous fireplaces while negus, tea, ratafia, or wine circulated through the drawing room. Storms moved softly against the windows while someone played the pianoforte nearby. Conservatories filled with orange trees, palms, and exotic imported plants became fashionable spaces for conversation. Pineapples remained expensive symbols of wealth and hospitality throughout the Georgian and Regency world. Elsewhere, libraries offered refuge from the social demands downstairs. Some guests escaped there deliberately, pretending to read simply to avoid exhausting conversations or unwanted attention. Dinner itself became one of the great performances of the house. Candles reflected against mirrors, silver, glass, Sheffield plate, and polished mahogany, while servants moved silently around the room, replacing dishes course after course. The air smelled of roast meat, pastry, candle wax, flowers, coal smoke, and perfume warming in the crowded dining room. Dinner might include soup, fish, roasted meats, game, puddings, jellies, syllabub, blancmange, preserved fruits, and elaborate desserts. White soup, famously associated with Pride and Prejudice, belonged to this world of fashionable entertaining. A dinner table communicated wealth, taste, and cultural ambition as clearly as conversation itself. Wedgwood ceramics, Sevres porcelain, silver, cut glass, fine linen, and fashionable furniture from makers such as Gillows communicated refinement and wealth. Portraits by Sir Thomas Lawrence and landscapes by J.M.W. Turner transformed interiors into statements of culture as well as status. Guests noticed the wine, the linen, the servants, the timing of the meal, the quality of the silver, and the elegance of the table. For hosts, the pressure to make the evening appear effortless could become exhausting in itself. The house at night. By midnight, the house belonged increasingly to servants, shadows, and dying firelight. The conversations faded. Music disappeared into silence. Candles vanished gradually into darkness across the corridors. Guests climbed staircases carrying flickering candles through portrait galleries and silent hallways, while fireplaces collapsed slowly into embers below. Some guests remained awake writing letters beside weak candlelight, while others lay listening to distant footsteps moving through the sleeping house. Below stairs, servants still carried coal, scrubbed dishes, folded linen, extinguished lamps, and prepared fires for morning. The great house never truly slept. By the following morning, some guests departed in carriages disappearing down muddy drives, leaving behind extinguished rooms, fading fireplace smoke, wilted flowers, and exhausted servants already preparing the estate for another round of visitors. The performance never lasted forever, but neither did the silence afterward. Today, many of these country houses survive as museums, hotels, filming locations, or tourist attractions. Visitors walk through portrait galleries, dining rooms, libraries, sweeping staircases, and candlelit galleries imagining a world of effortless, aristocratic elegance. And in many ways, the beauty was real. The music, gardens, portraits, silver, porcelain, candlelight, and evening rituals could make the country house feel almost magical for a few hours each night. But that beauty depended upon labor most guests barely noticed. Luxury concealed anxiety. Grandeur often concealed financial fragility as well. Some families maintaining these enormous estates already carried debts that would eventually damage or destroy entire dynasties later in the 19th century. Rituals transformed fears about money, status, marriage, loneliness, inheritance, and belonging into daily performance. For a few hours beneath candlelight, aristocratic life could appear almost perfect. But every morning the fires needed lighting again.
Thank you everyone so much for watching Cultured Elegance. If you'd love to support the channel, you can become a channel member today by clicking Join at the bottom of the screen. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.